for Inside Utah Politics.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Glenn Mills. It is time to go inside Utah politics, and we do begin this morning with House Speaker Brad Wilson here to discuss a possible run for the U.S. Senate. Speaker, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for the invite.
You bet. You have officially launched an exploratory committee. We'll get more into that in just a minute, but I'd first like to just start off with your interest in jumping from the state legislature to potentially U.S. Congress.
Yeah. Well, you know, Glenn, this is a wonderful state we live in, and I was raised here, and I raised my family here, and even started some businesses here where we've employed hundreds of Utahns. And as Speaker, have loved being in public service and loved the opportunity we've had to keep government small and also to, for example, reduce taxes over $1 billion the last 5 years. But you compare and contrast how great Utah is doing with some of the challenges we see coming out of D.C. This reckless spending that's caused runaway inflation that's really hurting Utah families, and the consequences that folks in our state are paying for some of the decisions that are made back there. And what I'm hearing from Utahns all over the state is they want Washington to be a lot more like Utah, and they want to make sure that whoever we have back there are conservative fighters, whether they're in the House or the Senate, that reflect Utah values. And so that's part of what I'm exploring right now.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because politics in Utah are very different from politics in Washington.
Sure. Yeah.
Here in Utah, of course, there are, partisan battles, but if you take a look at the bills, most of them get bipartisan support in Utah. You can't say the same about Washington. So moving from one environment to the other, how do you be effective?
Well, one of the things that appears to me to be really absent from D.C. just in general are individuals that have experience getting things done in a bipartisan way. And so we have this opportunity, I think, in this country to do things differently and work together to do the hard lifting and the heavy lifting that needs to be done. And one of the elements that we're thinking about and wanting to make sure we do is figure out how to do that back in D.C.
All right, Speaker of the House, you've been a lawmaker prior to that for several years as well. What else on your resume do you believe qualifies you to represent Utah in the Senate?
Yeah, well, kind of like I said earlier, I mean, as a lifelong Utahn and as Speaker, I think I understand this state from the top of it to the bottom of it and the issues. I have 74 colleagues in the House who all come to me as Speaker and tell me what the issues are that their constituents are dealing with, and I've got a really good feel for the challenges and the struggles that Utahns are facing right now. And the role of our delegation back in D.C. is to go back there and fight for Utah and reflect Utah values and to do things that will help not just the state of Utah, but help our country. And we are the best state in the country. U.S. News & World Report last week just said that. And out of 8 categories that they rated all the states in the country on, Utah was in the top 10 in 5 of those. And they said unequivocally we're the best state in America. And those are some of the things that I think Utahns would like to see put in place back in D.C.
If you take a look at our 2 senators now, you would say there's quite a contrast between the 2 of them. They both are Republican, representing the state of Utah, but they definitely have different viewpoints, and we've seen that play out in their time in the Senate. How would you say, or what would you say type of senator you would be when you kind of compare that spectrum between the 2 we have now?
You know, I think that my record as Speaker is probably the best indication of how I would perform back in D.C. And I am a conservative. I think my record shows that, whether it's on economic issues and cutting taxes or trying to keep regulations low and out of people's lives. You have to look at people's past performance to understand how they're going to show up in a new role. And I think my performance and record are very, very conservative, but also very consistent.
Let's talk more about the exploratory committee. What is the process? What are you looking at right now? And what are the key factors that would indicate, yes, I'm in, or no, I'm not?
Yeah, so I'm really doing 3 things right now. You do have to understand, unfortunately, in these races, we all have understood, I guess, that they cost money. And so to be able to start raising money, you have to file with the Federal Elections Commission. So that's what the exploratory committee did a few weeks ago. And so that's part of what is happening right now, is raising money to gauge support. But really spending a lot of time going around the state, listening to people, trying to understand not their perspective on just Utah, but what they want from their representatives back in D.C. and hearing what their concerns are. And then also just trying to figure out for me personally and my family, is this the right fit for us right now?
What role does Senator Romney's decision play in this? Obviously, it's a different race, whether you're up against an incumbent or it's an open seat. Yeah.
Well, I think there will be a time to kind of talk about who's in this race and who's not in this race. We don't know right now who is going to be in. And I suspect we'll see this start to settle in the fall, when I'll be making my decision and others may be making theirs. But I do know this, Utahns are very interested in this race. They want to make sure that they have the person back there that reflects what they care about, and we'll all see kind of who ends up throwing in their hat in the ring and being in that race at that point.
So at this point, it's still just kind of looking at that field as part of the exploratory process as well, and then deciding, am I in or out?
Well, that's for sure a part of it, but really what I am much more interested in is understanding what Utahns want and expect in their representation in D.C. and seeing if I'm the right fit for that. And so far, I feel really good about what they're saying, because I believe what they're saying and what they're looking for.
A lot of theories to this next point, and I'll let our viewers decide which one is reality, but there have been a lot of people from the state legislature try to make that jump directly from the state to Congress, and it hasn't worked out so well. You have to go back quite a ways to find a person that has been successful for. Are you looking at that as a factor? I mean, one theory potential would be, as you mentioned, you have a record, and sometimes maybe it's easier to run without a record.
Sure.
That would be one theory. But is that playing a role in your decision at all?
It's not, actually. I mean, there are a number of people that have run from the legislature and haven't had success, but there's a lot that have. You look at Jim Hansen, Norm Bangerter. We have a lot of people that have been in elected office, lieutenant governors that have been elected governors. So I think what Utahns value is experience, political alignment, and whether or not they believe the people they're electing are going to go back and do the things they want. And so I'm not really terribly concerned about that.
Let's talk about the next steps. We have a couple minutes left. You've already mentioned when a decision might come. Can you narrow it down for us a little more?
Well, maybe. It's really hard to know. This is a little bit of an iterative process. One of just a real practical issue, Glenn, quite frankly, is I was asked to host the National Speakers Conference. So all the speakers of the House from around the country will be here in September. I'm hosting them. And I want to make sure that I'm focused on that in September, and then we'll probably evaluate things at that point and see kind of where we're at.
Okay. So talk then about the next steps. What will you be doing over the next few months specifically to continue with this process?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I'm doing my job as Speaker of the House. It's still a full-time job.
Even special session coming up this week. Yeah,
special session. And we have interim meetings starting in May and June, and so that's still occupying most of my time. But in addition to that, I'm traveling the state, having meetings with people, listening to what their concerns are, and trying to address those and seeing if I'm a good fit and match for what they're looking for. We are raising money, so that's part of the time frame, and also experiencing this with my family and letting them get a feel for what this may be like.
All right, this is something, as you mentioned, a lot of people are interested in. We will be watching it, and of course, so many more dynamics yet to play out. Depending on if Romney's in or out, this could be potentially a crowded race. So we will keep an eye on it and appreciate your insight and discussion this morning.
Thanks
for being here.
It's always great to be with you, Glenn.
All right. Still to come, Governor Spencer Cox.